Hey guys, so I'm finally back with another tutorial, and today's video is going to be an easy everyday makeup look. This is just my everyday routine, and if you want to see what I used and how I achieved this, just please stay tuned. Okay, so before I get started, I just want to let you guys know, as I was picking out the products that I do use for my everyday makeup routine, I realized most of them are Bare Minerals, and they all go towards a brightening, glowing effect. Me personally, that's just my preference. I don't have dry skin. I don't have oily skin either. It's pretty normal. Sometimes combo, for the most part, it's pretty normal. There's just a few products that aren't Bare Minerals, but you can tweak this to fit your needs and your preferences. And just because this is an everyday makeup routine, just keep in mind that doesn't mean that it's really any less makeup. It's just more neutral, natural colors, and they're just applied slightly differently, not as harsh, but it's definitely still a full face of makeup. So yeah, let's just jump on in. I'm going to start with my brows, and for these kinds of looks, I've really been loving my Anastasia Dip Brow, mainly because it is super quick and easy to use. Oh, and before I get started, one last thing to mention is Bare Minerals did come out with an entire new brush line, so I will be using those brushes mainly. I haven't cracked into them yet and really gotten use out of them, so I just figured, why not? Most of the products I'm using are Bare Minerals. Why not introduce the new Bare Minerals brushes, since I really didn't want to do a completely separate video for them, because there's just so many. So yeah, anyway, let me stop rambling and get on to brows. I'm using the shade Ebony. Yes, it is probably way too dark, but I started using this back when I dyed my hair pitch black, and Dip Brow just never runs out, so it works. I just use a little bit of lighter hand, and I'm going to use that on Bare Minerals Brow Master Brush. So it does have a little spoolie on one side and the angled side. It is not the thinnest, but it's pretty stiff, and I do think that it'll work. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush through them first. And then I just like to dip my brush in and sort of move it back and forth in the lid, just to kind of get off the excess product. With this, you really want to use the least amount of product possible. So then I like to start on the bottom of my brow and just sort of keep pushing the product through, and I create a nice line where I want the bottom of my brow to be. Okay, I don't bring that line all the way into the front just yet. Once I'm done with the line, then that's when I'm going to take just sort of the excess product and slowly push that line forward. So we have that so far. Now, instead of dipping back to the actual product, I dip into what is in my lid. Now I'm going to do the same thing just along the top. Then keep in mind, you do want the outer quarter of your brow, everything from the outer half, from your arch over to be the deepest, darkest part of your brow. So I go ahead and fill that in using a little bit of a heavier hand, and then I slowly push product forward, again using a lighter hand, and then right here, all I do is just flick up, just to get a little bit of color in there. Okay. I'm going to take my spoolie, brush that all out. Next, I'm going to go in with next I'm going to go in with my NYX Above and Beyond Concealer. If you really want to use something from Bare Minerals, you can use their correcting concealer. And for this kind of step, I really like to use these flat square brushes, and I just put that into my pot of concealer. I'm going to run that along the bottom of the brow. just to really clean it up. Next, we're just going to take Bare Minerals Soft Focus Eyeshadow Brush. And this one isn't a new one. It was already part of their collection. And I'm just going to blend out all of that concealer. Then as for the front, I just like to take this and just draw a smooth, clean line. And then we're going to go ahead and blend that out. So that's one brow. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my other brow off camera. Okay, so now that my brows are done, I'm going to move on to the eyes. And for the eyes, I really don't do much for these kinds of looks. I'm just going to take my 5-in-1 BB eyeshadow primer in the shade Soft Linen. Just going to place that all over the eyes and take my finger and just pat that in. And this is almost going to act as a concealer for your eyelid, and it'll just sort of blank out any of the veins or discoloration that you might have. And move on to the face. I'm going to start with my Bare Minerals Brightening Primer. And this just has a little bit of a pearlescence, but the color really does not transfer onto the skin. But it does leave you with a nice radiant glow. I'm going to take my MAC Fix Plus. Just spray that. Mine is running out. And the reason I like to do that is because MAC Fix Plus has glycerin in it. And glycerin is going to make everything that you put on top of it sort of adhere and stick a little bit better. So next, I'm going to take my Bareskin Brightening Serum. For my skin, this works incredible. So I am going to take this, and the glycerin in the MAC Fix Plus is really going to help this to adhere because it is a serum foundation. So it is a little bit more liquidy in texture than most foundations are. I'm going to take that on my Bare Minerals Perfecting Face Brush. I want to shake the bottle up. And then I'm going to take 2 drops right into the well of the brush. So it looks like that. I'm going to start at the center of my face because this is where I like the most coverage, and blend outward. Now that our foundation is on, we're going to move right on into concealer. And for this, I'm just going to be using Stroke of Light. So I just take some of that right under the eyes. And it looks like I'm placing a lot of product, but this is a very, very thin concealer. And it has some crushed pearls in it, and that's what gives it the brightening effect. So that's mainly why I choose this concealer, for the brightness that it gives. Then I just take the tiniest amount down the center of my face, just more so to help balance it. Then I go right back in with my foundation brush, and I'm just going to blend all that in. Now that that's all blended in, we can go on to mineral veil or setting powder. The hydrating mineral veil obviously is going to be a little bit more hydrating than regular setting powders, and I really like this because sometimes when you pop setting powder on, you can see a little layer of powder laying on top of your foundation, and with the hydrating mineral veil, that is not at all the case. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tap some into the lid, and for this, I'm going to be using the Seamless Shaping and Finish Brush. And this has like a tulip shape end. So I really like this because it's going to be really good to get in under the eyes. So with Bare Minerals, because it is all loose minerals, you need to tap some into the lid, swirl the brush around, and then in this case, go ahead and press it on. I like to mainly set under my eyes, just to avoid any creasing under there. Then I'm just going to take whatever is left over on here. I really like to set my forehead. My forehead is the one spot that I like to keep more on the matte side, mainly because I do have a larger forehead, so that's going to minimize the appearance of it. If you have a smaller forehead, you would want to highlight it instead. So now that that's all set, next I'm going to move on to a second mineral veil, but this one is a little different. It is a bronzing mineral veil. And yes, this is something that they intend to put all over the face, but me personally, I'm going to place this around the areas that I would bronze, sort of as a transition shade for my bronzer, to help it look that much more natural. And I'm going to take that on the Supreme Finisher. This is more so a setting powder brush, but because it's nice and fluffy, it's really going to diffuse that product. So I'm just taking some on the lid. I'm going to swirl my brush into that until it's picked up all the product. Tap off any excess. And I'm going to start on the cheek area and then blend that up and then underneath. I'm going to be using the California Bronze palette, which looks like this. It is a limited edition palette, and inside of it, you're going to get 2 different bronzers and a highlight. The highlight is permanent, and so is, not that one, this bronzer. This is the High Dive, and this is the Shining Moment. The Shining Moment is only sold in a duo right now, though, with a more pinky highlight attached. But the Ocean View is limited to this palette, and that is actually the one that I'm going to use out of here. It's probably my favorite bronzer of life. So I'm going to use that on the Blooming Blush Brush. And it has a nice angle to it. It's really dense and stiff, so these are the kind of brushes that I like to use to contour. I'm going to place that right under my cheekbones, and then just sort of fade it up. Normally on an everyday basis, I do wear more peachy tones, both on my lips and on my cheeks, and even as my transition shade on the eyes. But for today, I really wanted to go with something a little bit more pink, just because I wear oranges and peaches on a daily basis. It's just what I'm comfortable with and what I feel is most flattering for me. So I really wanted to go with something more on the pink side today. Normally for my blush, I would use Vintage Peach, but today I'm going to go in with Cheerful, which is my favorite shade of a pink blush. Again, you're going to take some of that on the lid. And for that, I'm going to be using this super cool soft curve face and cheek brush. And this is supposed to be like a blush brush, but it just has, I don't know if you can see it on camera, it's angled, but it also has a divot. I don't know what I can do to make this look any better on camera, but it has a divot in here, and it's supposed to mimic the shape of the cheekbone. So again, I'm just going to take what's in the lid, swirl that around. Oh, it hugs the cheeks so nicely. And I just want a really subtle wash of color. So you can see how much that brightens the complexion. We're going to move on to our highlight. Today I'm going to be using Flawless Radiance. And again, it is another loose mineral product. This is more on the gold champagne side. And I'm going to take that on the Shade and Diffuse eye brush. This is an eyeshadow brush. It's really cool, unlike anything I've ever seen, because it's dual fiber and it's a little flat, and then the second layer's longer bristles are really going to help blend. So I thought this would be good for the highlight. So I'm just sort of patting it on where I want it first before I go in and blend it out. You could go ahead and use the Shining Moment from the California Bronze palette, but I just feel like for my complexion I'm a little too fair. It definitely does work, but it's intense, and it's an intense gold for how fair I am. So I just feel like this gold champagne shade works a little better for now. And then I'm going to take some more of the highlighter. I'm just going to place that right on the very tip of my nose. And that's just going to help lift that. The Cupid's bow. And you definitely don't just want to place your highlight on the cheekbones, because it's going to look a little bit unbalanced. You want to bring it to other areas of the face. I'm also going to take some on my inner tear duct area, since we're not going to be using any sort of eyeshadow today. This is really just going to help brighten and open up the eyes. And again, like I mentioned earlier, if you have a smaller forehead, you can go ahead and apply some on the center of the forehead and middle of the eyebrows. But I'm going to skip that step because my forehead is a little on the larger side. That way I don't accentuate anything. And the only other thing that I'm really going to do is add some of the same bronzer that I put on my cheeks into my crease. And for that, I'm going to be using the Blender eyeshadow brush. It's going to take a little bit of that bronzer and just do a super light wash of this in my crease. Going with mascara, and for my top lashes I really like Lash Domination. This is again by Bare Minerals, but for my bottom lashes I feel like this transfers down here, mainly because my lower lashes are pretty long. So I'm going to go in with Best Lash Extreme by Jordana. Onto lips, and for a lip liner, this is really unnecessary, but I am going with the shade Jazzed. I'm going to go in with the Pop of Passion in the shade Pink Passion, right? Yeah, Pink Passion. And I actually did an entire separate video on these, so I'll make sure to link that down below for you guys. So then I'm just going to go in and spray a little bit more of my MAC Fix Plus. Fan that so it's all set into place. Okay, so now my makeup is all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!